Let's start with the topic. Uh, Chasing the shadows, Cybercop Tango against the digital bandits. I just invite Brijesh, your opening comments on the topic, especially Cybercop Tango against the bandits, digital AI. What trends do you see in the market?
See, in the last some years, the most powerful attacks on economy, on democracy, nation states, on individual freedoms, on safety and security have all come from cyberspace. And the entry barrier to cybercrime has been lowered. Newer and newer tools are coming up. Gen AI itself has opened up a huge opportunity for cyber criminals to multiply their capabilities, automate things. And this has left the whole fintech and financial ecosystem of the world at a very vulnerable place. In fact, in G20 also this was discussed. And it was found that it is very imperative that something seriously needs to be done for the stability of the financial system. So today, as I oft repeat, the cybercrime ecosystem has become $10 trillion. It's thrice of India's GDP. And crime has never been so profitable in the history of the world. And it is time that right from policies, laws, to cooperation, forensics, tradecraft, everything needs to be revamped.
Thanks, Brijesh. Great opening comments. The $10 trillion and the impact from a government perspective is great. You mentioned G20 discussion. Anuj, from your perspective, in the corporate world, it brings its own challenges, its own opportunities. What are the key trends, especially after COVID, that you've seen?
So yeah, this is one of the most interesting times in the space of cybersecurity, right? So there are two subjects which everyone's talking about. Either it's AI or it's cybersecurity. And typically, if you really look back in the last 3 years, what happened in COVID, it just suddenly opened this whole Pandora box where you were working from your fortified offices into enterprise security, and suddenly now you're connecting from the weakest link and Wi-Fi from home, right? It opened its own challenges. We saw, the year of 21, 22, the maximum number of attacks, ransomware attacks, right? We had all kinds of things that happened then. In the last 1 year, again, as Brijesh sir said, there has been a lot of social engineering crimes, right? Because of the digitalization of the economy, especially in India, we've seen all kinds of new threats. OTP hacks, OTP fatigue, right? We are seeing more and more elders getting compromised. At the same time, because of the geopolitical issues, we are seeing state-sponsored crime as well, right? With state-sponsored attacks. We've seen enough and more data available in the dark web. Has anyone ever gone to the dark web here? Very few hands. I would recommend all of you all to just go in and scan the dark web. And you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked with the kind of data that is lying in there. So what it means is that definitely, security is a big concern. Now it's all about how breach ready are you, right? So breach is going to happen. How breach ready are you as an organization, as an enterprise, or as an individual?
Thank you, Anuj, for your opening comments. Brijesh, back to you. Blind spots in cyber and fintech. We've seen the regulator actually go strong on the KYC norms. What are the new onboarding challenges as customers get onboarded to fintech?
KYC, the first blind spot. That whenever we investigate, we find that at the end of it, there is some account, there is some phone number, there is some digital wallet which has been generated with fake documents. Now, the greater challenge with Gen AI today is that you can have synthetic identities, which are very realistic. So, plus, earlier it was very difficult to create photos. Now, with Gen AI, you can also create realistic photos of the same looking person, and that person may not be existing also.
And also impersonate voice.
Yes, yes. Even for video KYC, today you would be able to impersonate. You would be, and look at the way Gen AI can be used and is being used for phishing, wishing, and other scams and misuse. Yes. So recently, a very senior cricketer of India was impersonated. A video of his was taken, and he's seen to be promoting some, shady game, right? So this has become possible today, but we will have to tighten this KYC, which is a great blind spot in our entire ecosystem. And I think if you take care of that, half of the social engineering attacks will stop, because at the end of it, if there is something which is, let's say, Aadhaar verified, you would know who has done it, and you'll be able to knock his doors at the night.
So you're saying KYC is the first potential blind spot, and Aadhaar could be one way. What are the other ways which you could do along with Aadhaar, or complementary issues to solving the KYC blind spot?
No, apart from KYC, you have to do something about authentication. I think passwords are broken. So you will need to have, you will have to come up with something. And it's time that the world comes up with a technology which is not password related. So OTPs are broken, and OTPs are being exploited. Mobile malware is there. But somewhere, everything ultimately boils down to authentication and password. And the question of identity also comes to passwords. And this needs to be really solved post-haste.
They say identity is a new perimeter, and that might make a difference. Identity is a new perimeter in that. Anuj, you were speaking about startups in this space, and especially what Brijesh mentioned, complementary authentication technologies, and you're doing a lot of work with startups. What's the new stuff happening, especially from that and a responsible AI perspective?
So, I'll split this question into two parts, right? And you've touched one of my favorite topics, that is passwordless, right? So if you look at my LinkedIn for the last 4 years, I've been promoting that it's time we change the 70-year-old habit of passwords, because they're the most compromised identity. So what it actually comes out to is a verified credential. So identity is you. You need to authenticate with your facial, liveness, or whichever way possible, where we just get rid of passwords. That's the only way we will have secured authentication. On responsible AI, right? Again, as you mentioned, that Gen AI is a game changer, right? We will have AI attack, AI prevent, then again attack, and at the same time, it can, if you go to the dark web, credentials are available, you can span close to 1 million attacks in a minute. So looking at all of that, it is very important right from the government level, at enterprise levels, and even at consultant levels for all of us to put in rules, regulations around AI, which is completely regulated. We are working with a lot of startups from US, where we're getting them to India to talk about how we can really regulate this whole safe AI, and how can we make a place where we have a level playing field.
Thanks, Anuj. Your thoughts on responsible AI?
Coffee is mine or yours? The coffee is mine or yours?
Yours. Responsible AI, your thoughts. Is it just a fad? People are working on AI or POCs. Are they thinking of responsible AI, or it's too far a thought?
I think responsible AI is a question which is facing the world today. You see that there are hidden biases in AI. Like, take a question, take a sensitive question, and ask it to all the models, and you would get entirely different answers. So now, once ChatGPT realized that certain uncensored answers were coming, it started something called alignment. Now, something strange happens with alignment. When you align the models, they become very stupid and they start hallucinating. So it's like democracies, right? That, that you can speak stupid things, but they may be intelligent. But if you really censor too much, then there's a lot of hallucination. So models also behave in a way, probably the way human societies behave. Now, you need to put guardrails around responsible AI. You need to have human in the loop for important decisions. You need to have explainable AI. You need to have transparency regarding algorithms. You need to have standardized data sets. Because as I generally talk about this documentary called Coded Bias, it showed that the error rates in facial recognition for people of color and minorities was much higher than those of whites. Similarly,
Similar for blood pressure also. There was a different skin color would give a different blood pressure just because of skin tone.
Yes. Imagine this then when this is being used for predictive policing and other stuff, then it's a question of life and death.
Yep.
And many states in the US and many countries have started banning facial recognition, that they are not allowing facial recognition. So, when facial recognition is an important part of AI. Yes. And I believe that there are certain standards which are being set. I think UK has done some good work. EU has done some good work. There is some work happening in US also. Similarly, India, I think corporate, government, everybody, we should sit together and we should talk about responsible AI and start having policies which are again Indian. Because today, you look at any model, it has been trained on a part of Wikipedia, part of Reddit, and it has no sensitivity, no sensibility towards anything which is Indian. So apart from the data set, apart from the hidden biases, the very nature of model itself may be in question.
The nature of data input in itself is
Yes.
biased.
So question of responsible AI is very important.
I would just like to add to that is that I sit on a couple of boards. Everyone is talking about how they want to introduce Gen AI in the organization because it's a board discussion. Everyone's trying to catch that entire trend. But I think very important for organizations to understand or individuals to understand, it's a land and expand story, and it's not a story where you go all in with Gen AI. So very important, what use cases you want to run, what is the learning model you want to attach to that, where do you want to host your data? Because if it is on the cloud, there is possibility it's open for the world, right? Again, how many parameters do you want to scan, whether it's 1 billion, 2 billion, 9 billion, it all depends on how you really want to use AI in your environment. So first get the use case right, then talk about responsible AI, right? We have to have some kind of planning in terms of what kind of data you're going to set into it and what are the outcomes for it. So that is what the world has to move towards.
Thanks. Brijesh, your favorite topic, public-private partnership. Is it happening much in this topic, in this area, or it's just everyone working in silos in their own LLM space?
I think, unfortunately, not much is happening there.
What should happen?
I think innovation should really be in a space where there are enough resources for innovation. We can't wait for government to give resources for innovation, and the corporates can't just look at profit motive and feel that we'll innovate only in place where we'll get profits. So innovation will have to come from a purely, if not philanthropic, but an altruistic space. That you will have to have innovation, which then may or may not have any economic benefits. So I feel that public-private partnerships are not happening the way they should happen. For example, let us look at China created its own fundamental model, Quen, right? France created Mistral. But what are we doing? We should have for each language, each of our languages so fundamentally different, semantically different, structurally different, linguistic roots are different. We should create our own fundamental models for each language. And in fact, that's also a good business case. Imagine having a model in Marathi or Tamil. The kind of accessibility it would provide to everybody. Because the best thing that Gen AI is doing is probably mimicking a human. When it would be able to talk and explain to somebody without the impediment of literacy, then it would really give great benefits. And this can come through public-private partnership.
Sure. One of the biggest issues you've been speaking of earlier is the difficulties law enforcement has when they're investigating cases, right? And the mobile arena had its own challenges. In my past life, I used to see that. With Gen AI, that accentuates to a different level. Tell us, all of us, what are the challenges you face as from a law enforcement perspective when you have to investigate these crimes?
See, the primary problem is that good guys do not collaborate, bad guys collaborate. So the cybercrime ecosystem is a very well-oiled ecosystem.
Good guys don't collaborate, bad guys collaborate, okay? And they do it well.
Bad guys do it very well.
Bad boys do it well.
And bad boys always have the one up on good boys, right?
For some time. कानून के हाथ लंबे होते हैं. So if you look at the cybercrime ecosystem and look at the entire cyber kill chain, you'll find that there is a lot of specialization, and it's very modular, and it can simply be passed on. That if you want credentials from a particular organization, you can just go to the dark web and start a bidding process that, okay, for this organization, I want this. Or if you want data, then somebody is ready to sell you data. Somebody would breach for you. Somebody would hack for you. Somebody would run an exploit for you. Somebody would deliver an exploit for you. Somebody would do an exfil for you. Somebody, shadow brokers. Yeah. I mean, one single agency, it caused mayhem across the world. So the cybercrime ecosystem is very well oiled. It has very natural collaboration with cryptocurrency, dark web gated markets. It's a very well oiled machinery. And with crypto laundering, mixers, tumblers, it's virtually impossible to track transactions. And this has led to a place where it's increasingly getting difficult to, first of all, get information. When you investigate, you don't get information. Because crime is generally designed for jurisdictional aspects. Now, this is something which is happening all over the world. One person may be sitting in Yugoslavia, the third person is sitting in Ukraine, the fourth person must be sitting in Australia. Like you saw the Lockbit ransomware case, that 10 law enforcements were collaborating for a very long time.
And unique.
A unique case. And I think we will need to up our game. We'll need to, and this is where I think public-private partnerships are essential regarding sharing of data. Because everybody, when they are looking at their perimeter, they are getting a lot of intelligence. They are understanding that what are the TTPs which exist there. And that should be passed on to law enforcement so that we can track, trace, and disrupt. And we should, with the help of experts, develop serious methodologies for tracking these things in a long time, getting hold of the infrastructure, seizing the infrastructure, doing the legal bit, tracking them across jurisdictions, whatever letrogatories, MLATs, and then bringing this whole cybercrime infrastructure down. And this requires a lot of work, which is sadly not happening now.
Anuj, from what Brijesh mentioned, there's an issue on the public-private partnership. What about skills? Do you think industry has the right skills to fund this? And how does India edge that skill gap?
Again, I think that is one of the biggest problems in cybersecurity in the world, and especially now with Gen AI coming in. What Brijesh mentioned is very important to understand that the bad boys are definitely well equipped. It's very easy for them to get equipped because at $15 you can bid a password out for a company or you can get credentials out, right? At the same time, at the rate the change of technology is happening, especially the way digitalization has happened in the last 2 years, in the next 2 years we're going to see a new world altogether. Skilling is going to be a huge issue. And again, to everyone who's here, it's going to be relevant skilling. So you might have 20 years of cybersecurity experience, but if you don't understand how Gen AI is going to attack you, or you don't understand the new threat actors or the threat vectors, it's no good. Because all that happened 20 years back, or at least what happened till last year, we don't see that here now. The new variants of attacks have changed. The other thing I feel very strongly is that as a country, we should look at how we all align together. As you said, sharing of information is very important. Sharing of skills is very important. And again, as India as a digital economy, if it's going to go from 3.5 to $7 trillion, all of that is going to happen in the digital way. So it makes us even more precarious in terms of the cybersecurity and how we all get together to protect this entire ethos of our businesses.
Sure. One more question to you. In the recent budget, the Prime Minister raised about 700 crores to cybersecurity. That's a good start. What's your thoughts on that?
So it was 400 crores last year. They upped it to 700 crores this year. Good start that they've gone up by 70%, but I still feel it's a bad start because if you look at the US cybersecurity budget, it's $13.1 billion. You look at UK cybersecurity budget, it's about $4 billion, right? And I think being the fifth largest or fourth largest economy very soon, our budgets have to go multifold if we really want to protect our
Brijesh, your
assets.
views? Is it a good start? Is it adequate? Is it just...
So I think probably this outlay may not be the right calculation because in every contract, wherever you do an IT contract today, there is a cybersecurity component.
So then what is this? Is it over and above?
It's over and above.
And what use will that go to?
It may go towards building of institutions, a building of structures towards investigation, maybe strengthening of the cyber posture of government institutions. Just to add, so this is a central government budget. We have so many states, right? We have more than 30 states. And with these states, each of them has a budget. And I think most of the states now have a government resolution which says that 10% of the IT outlay will go to cybersecurity. So that's happening by default. 3 years back, I had checked, at least 8 states had done it. I think by now, many more states would have done it. So the outlay on cybersecurity is increasing. However, I feel that government cybersecurity is a much more serious question because it's a question of trust. The kind of trust that a government system should have, any breach or any damage would have much more implication than it happens with a profit-centric organization. Because here, you are dealing with people. You are dealing with, people's life, liberty, and their well-being. So it's the bounden duty of government, first of all, to get its cybersecurity posture in place, to strengthen government systems, to see to it that procurement processes are such that we shouldn't go for just the lowest, but also a technically viable solution.
High quality. How much would this go to actually training and R&D? Would that be more investment, threat intelligence, threat hunting, those type of future enhancing technologies, or would be more in the here and now, identify, detect, protect types?
I think all organizations, including law enforcement, are putting a lot of emphasis on training. And the best thing that nowadays I see is that whenever we do procurements for equipment, let's say I'm purchasing a forensic equipment, I build the costs of training into the procurement. So it's a good practice. It's a good practice which industry can also undertake. That we say that, okay, you're giving this equipment, also conduct classes. And then we have service level agreements that on this, these 50% of people should pass with these marks on this equipment. So training is automatically happening. And I believe that most organizations are putting a lot of efforts and resources in training.
Training and R&D budgets, do you see it happening in the corporates also, or is it just in the law enforcement?
No, there is a lot of spend on training and R&D, but again, it all has to come down from top down, from the CEO level, that we have to train and skill our resources. But the problem in corporate is you train and skill and then they leave you, right? So retention is such a big problem in the corporate world that it's always a challenge of how you train, how many you keep, and how many you retain.
Sure. So, Brijesh, so many different agencies. How does it work? Coordination, cooperation, solving a crime. Is it all well-oiled, or is it more personal push?
But just investigation is generally a case-based reasoning. It's generally a case which, as it unfolds,
So multi-stakeholder coordination programs, do they really work?
They can work in terms of long-term intelligence and tracking operations. But generally, if an investigation is taking place, it's generally evidence which would lead you. If I know that, okay, this server has been used, this IP has been used, or that this malware has these particular signatures, then I'm going to contact those particular organizations and those jurisdictions for information. So generally, collaboration is only when there is a need for investigation. Otherwise, for intelligence sharing, yes, there is a gap there which needs to be definitely addressed about intelligence sharing. I think that is not exactly happening.
And in this increasing in the fintech space, from your perspective, you see the fintech industry, for which the conference is also largely at, do you see a lot of more compliance from the regulators in the fintech industry because it serves the larger banking system?
No, I think RBI has done a great job in terms of the compliances that they've put in is unreal, right? They've done a great job, but again, every time you add compliances, you add complexity to it, right? And in that complexity, it just becomes that much more difficult to keep complying to all the norms, right? Just to your point on the other point that you were talking about, collaboration. So in the last 1 year, we've seen about 10 or 12 different attacks at our enterprise customers. And we've actually circled back with the law enforcement, and they have been more than forthcoming, right? I think there's a big change in the law enforcement where we see if you report an attack or you report there's something wrong, the law enforcement really puts all the machinery behind it to solve that problem, because somewhere it is becoming nation's problem, right? So to everyone who's here, if you have a problem, please report it. The problem in India is that we don't report the problem. We first try to solve it with friends, family, or you call somebody. But if there's a problem, you've been hit by an attack, which I'm sure at one point in time you would be, please go ahead and report that problem.
Just to add, cybercrime.gov.in, that is where you report it. Cybercrime.gov.in. And 1930.
1930.
If you lose money, just dial 1930.
Does it really work well? How many % of cases actually get? I've been to the center, and I think it works very well. They have metrics, they have KPIs. The time from attacker to the victim to reimbursement, there are actually metrics in cybercrime. You want to talk about a few of those metrics? I've seen great stuff.
Right now, I'm not handling that subject, but I was a part of it when it was being built. And when we were handling it, Center used to really follow up. So Center also has now dedicated cybercrime bodies. So in the Ministry of Home Affairs, they have I4C. They have excellent resources there. And this particular thing about 1930, they have built a real-time mechanism that once you call them, they call all financial institutions and they stop payment, which stops the flight of money. Otherwise, we've seen in cases where money is jumping 9 accounts and getting distributed and being taken out somewhere from mule accounts. So this has been, I think, a very good step, and it's working.
Kudos to government and police for that. Yeah, well done. We've got a minute left. Any questions? Sunil, would you like to ask a question to Brijesh? Or come on, Sunil, you're an old hand. Any mics here?
He's going to ask tough questions.
Yeah. Anybody wants to ask a question? We have a minute left. Any tough questions? Okay. Next year, same place, same time. Your closing comments. What would be the topic from a cybercrime, fintech? What will change? More AI, more blockchain, more crypto? You have a question? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
one question.
You're the organizer. You can't ask
Yeah, it's
questions.
okay. No, no, it's very, very important because I know what's left out. Whenever there's a new technology, there are new threats, and we all worry about that, how it will be handled. But the positive part is that it's new for everyone. This is the time when you can actually set a base, a good framework within the government to handle the threats coming from Gen AI. If you are the boss, Brijesh sir, what would you start with?
Actually, there's a lot of echo.
So I think his question in new time, new attacks, everyone's facing for the first time. What would your first steps be as you revolutionize the attacks on cybercrime? Is that correct?
Yeah, so my point is that the positive part of a brand new threat from a brand new technology is that you can build frameworks from ground up. There is no confusion whatsoever. Nobody knows what it is.
So it's a
If
green
you-
field.
Yeah, if you are the boss, where would you
He
start
is the
with?
boss.
Yeah,
He is the boss.
yeah. I mean that's how we find his brilliant mind coming out. Yeah.
Is this in relation to Gen AI, where you're
No,
saying
he's
Gen AI,
saying
yeah,
Gen AI frameworks, so responsible AI types. Yes.
Threats from Gen AI.
threats
What
from
framework works? There's so many frameworks. There's a European framework,
yes,
the Indian
yes,
framework.
yes.
What works?
No, I think the approach which Anthropic has taken of constitutional AI is a very serious and good approach. Is that even in the fundamental developmental stage of model, it has built guardrails around it, and that's why they call it constitutional AI, because it's true to constitutional principles, which are universally acceptable. So the propensity and the possibility of misuse is reduced at the stage of building the model itself. Because otherwise, ultimately, if you try and train a model, then you would always have a prompt injection, or you'll always have, one way wherein you would be able to ask the model to give you something which is very malicious. But if the model is built in such a way, in a responsible way, I think that is where I would like to start.
Good starting point. Same place, next year, same time. What would you talk about? You can start and British can end.
As per me, I think the world's going to change in the next 2 years, right? It's too early to talk what Gen AI can do or how the things are going to come out. With the geopolitical issues that we are seeing, cybercrime is going to be at the apex, right? It's going to be every household discussion. So I come back 1 year from now, I think we'll have new threats, new problems, new issues, right? And we all have to collectively
And new
look at-
opportunities also, right? For guys like us, new opportunities.
Exactly. And we all have to responsibly work towards how we can secure the world.
British, your closing comments.
I think Gen AI is good. Its malicious uses would be more towards synthetic identity. But I think next year we will be talking about large-scale infrastructure attacks and supply chain compromises. That, I think, is something serious we should be looking at.
One last question. This is the year of the elections, right? Almost a few dozen countries are going through elections. Is there a cyber component on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So disinformation and gray zone warfare was a big concern till now. With Gen AI, at least that will be enabled with synthetic media, with fake media, with deep fakes, with voice cloning. This is really going to proliferate. And even in Davos, this was discussed at World Economic Forum. If you look at the cybersecurity outlook of Davos, it has a full chapter on election cybersecurity. And this is a strange year where almost 50% of the world is going for elections.
It's a year of elections.
Yeah, it's a year of elections. So I think we need to watch this space very carefully and evolve countermeasures before it's too late.
So my bit to this, that technology is going to be the epicenter of the campaigns in election. Gen AI is going to play a huge role, right? And globally, we'll see how biases are going to be formed using technology. So it's going to be a very interesting year to watch what happens.
Thank you so much. Great audience, great panel. Thank you. I really loved moderating it. Thank you so much, organizers.